And for those who missed out all the other lectures, you can always get to YouTube. You just type in Reverend Guan Cheng at BuddhistTemple.ca, if you get onto YouTube, just put in Reverend Guan Cheng, then all these previous lectures will show up. The Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and many, many other lectures, Q&A and all that. So we are very mindful of how we're going to produce all these lectures on YouTube. Meditation, we say in and out breath, Anapanasati, and meditation is in two parts: concentration or focus, or in the Sanskrit language it's samatha, and contemplation. Contemplation is actually not the best translation for it. It should be introspection, but I'm using contemplation just to it's a common name so that people can understand. Introspection it's within, so it's a contemplation within. And the Sanskrit is vipassana. In concentration, we talk about counting, we talk about following, and we talk about stabilization. We've used more than 20 hours to talk about concentration. So remember, meditation is in two parts. Relatively easier part is concentration, because our minds have been like a monkey mind going all over the place, wandering all over direction. Now you want to focus your mind in quietude, to focus your mind so that you can conjure up all this energy so that you can do a better introspection. Because if your mind is desultory, if your mind is all over the place involving in unwholesome thinking, what are unwholesome thinking? Anger, hatred, lust, greediness, suspicion, skeptical doubt, which the psychologist said skeptical doubt is cognitive dissonance. We always have cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the emotional mind and the rational mind. They're always going against each other. You're emotionally involved with a lot of things, and your rational mind is always trying to correct it, but then somehow in most situations, your emotional mind seems to be dominating. Emotions of greediness, hatred, jealousy, anxiety, worry, depression, all these. So the Buddha said, we have to correct all this. We have to radiate wholesome energy. We want to correct we want to put our mind in the right path. So, but putting your mind in the right path, first of all, you can't go in all directions. You have to concentrate. So counting, following, and stabilization. Now we're involved with introspection. In the last session, we also talked something about introspection. Introspection is when your mind is at equanimity, in a still state, in a state of peacefulness, in a state of more or less calm and peaceful tranquility of it, then you start to think. Then you start to build up wisdom. You're looking for wisdom now. You're not just looking for the power to concentrate. You're looking for wisdom. And that is automatic. Simultaneously, you're looking for wisdom. And now, there's introspection. We need to put more time into it. Because concentration is easy. Contemplation or introspection is not easy. It's a little higher level because you're going into the wisdom level. And in order to understand properly what is introspection, then we have to understand how our mind works. Briefly, we have to understand how our mind works. So right now, I want to get back to introspection, but I want to talk about it in more details. I don't want to just rush through introspection and say turning and purification. we better take a slow, careful, and enlightening approach to introspection. So let's take a look at introspection again. How do we cultivate introspection? We did a little bit of cultivation last time, but broad, general concepts. Now we want to go a little deeper concept into the cultivation of introspection. How does our mind work? Our mind always thinks, and subsequently perform through thoughts, speeches, and actions. Thought, every thought that we have. Speech is what we utter from the mouth. And actions, how do we behave from the body. So thinking or thought will lead to what? Speeches, and will lead to behavior. Speeches and behaviors, repeated all the time, becomes what? Becomes your habit. When your habit is repeated all the time, becomes what? Your personality. When your personality dominates you, that becomes your destiny. Don't blame your mom and dad. Don't blame the society. Blame your own thought. Blame your own action. Blame your own speeches, because that's nurture you to be what you are today. You're always greedy. You always have lust. You always want to satisfy sensual pleasures. You're not looking for enlightenment. You're not compassionate. If you're not compassionate, you don't have loving kindness. You only care for yourself. You're selfish. You're egoistic. Then that's the kind of personality that you have. And that personality will what? Will lead you to suffering. Will lead you to karmic energy, to samsara, we call it. So the mind thinks in terms of thoughts, and thoughts would induce you to speak foul languages, cursing, lying, slandering is from the mouth. And thought also induces your body to act, becomes your behavior. So I put also introspect on the top. Introspect involves wise thinking, wise speeches, the right thinking, the right speech, and the right behavior. So how does the mind think? Very briefly. All dharmas of the past, present, and future. What does dharma means? We want to retain that Sanskrit word dharma. Dharma includes everything. Whatever you see, whatever you feel, you touch, everything. Physical, metaphysical, everything. We use, in the Buddhist terminology, use the word dharma, 一切法, dharmas. Dharmas not only of the present, of the past, of the present and the future. You ruminate on the present, you worry about your past, and you have anxiety for the future. That's how we're doing. And usually when we think, how do we think? Our senses, our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, our body, our manos, are interacting with physical objects. I'm looking at you. You are physical objects. I'm looking at the light. I'm listening to sound. Matter. Sound is like kind of frequency. So the mind interact with senses, with objects of attention. And then the mind only, even if you're not here, see, if you're not here today, and John is not here today, you're not here, but I'm thinking about John that I saw yesterday. So that was an impression in my mind, and images in my mind. You think also in terms of impression and images, not just physical objects. Because you thought about your mom, your dad, your grandmom, your dad, granddad. You thought about yesterday, the day before. All these are impressions and images. All these impressions and images are always accumulated in your mind. And all these impressions and images, they're involved with what? Most of them involved with what? Emotions. Emotions of lust, anger, hatred, ignorance, skeptical doubt, you name them, jealousy. depression, all these. We have images and impressions of all these. And also the mind is involved with concepts. When I say concepts, there are always some concepts in our mind. The concept of emptiness, the concepts of impermanence, many concepts that we have learned. Even concepts in mathematics, concepts in psychology, concepts in history, many kinds of concepts. We usually bring egoistic concepts in our rumination, in our thinking. We used to bring concepts of greediness, concepts of self-protection into our mind. We seldom bring concepts of caring for the welfare of others. We're self-centered. We're personalizing everything. Concepts of personalization, self-centeredness approach. So many concepts. So we have to be careful with what kind of concepts we're always ruminating on, we're always pondering on. We're very careful. And when we are studying Buddhism, we are studying concepts too. When we're studying what the Buddha taught, we're always studying concepts. So introspection is about concepts. It's about past concepts. Introspection sometimes is involved with images and impressions too, involved with objects too. But usually it's the concepts that in our mind that we have to be very careful about. So what are these concepts? Usually we introspect in the wrong way. As our mind has been influenced by mental afflictions accumulated from our past life, our past experiences, such as greediness, anger, arrogance, self-views, suspicions, or skeptical doubt, and so on. Life is full of suffering. Why is life full of suffering? Because we have these mental afflictions that drive us to do speeches and actions that are not beneficial, that are not considering the welfare of others. We're always like self-centered. We're always involved in, for example, in killing, lying, intoxications, sexual misconduct, drinking, etc. So these bring suffering. You think you have done all these bad deeds and nobody know about it? No. Causality will find the effects coming out. When you have cultivated these causes, bad effects will come out. Good causes, good effect will come out. So life is full of suffering. What are these sufferings that we've been talking about? Being born is suffering. You have no choice. Do you have a choice? When you're given birth to, do you have a choice? If you have a choice, you would choose to be born in a very rich family. If you have a choice, you would like to be born to be a handsome, a beautiful, healthy, right? You don't have a choice. Why don't you have a choice? Because where you're going is dominated by what you have done in your previous life. If you're always killing, then in this life, you have chosen a body that is suffering from bad health. If you are selfish in teaching others, maybe in this body, you're suffering from not intelligent, being not intelligent enough. So life it's being born is suffering, aging is suffering. I'm gradually feeling it. I'm aging. Aging is suffering. When you pass 50, there's so many diseases will come up that you don't realize. When you pass 60, more, 70, more, 80, more, 90, and after 90, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's ocean view. You're under the ground, 8 feet under the ground. You don't have to worry about it. So Being born is suffering, aging is suffering. Young guys, they don't worry about aging. I'm only 20 years old. I'm only 18, 13, 14. Why do I have to worry about aging? I'm not aging. But yeah, you're not aging, but are you worrying about death? So death is suffering too. You think a young guy is not going to die, is for sure guaranteed 100 years old? We have seen a lot of young guys die in accidents, in sicknesses too. So not only old guys die, young guys also die. So death is suffering. And sickness is of course suffering. Departure from beloved ones is suffering. Your mom passed away, your dad, your grandmom, your wife, your husband. Departure from beloved ones. You cry, you grieve, you're grief-stricken for a year. You can't get away with the memories. And you're not happy. So departure with beloved ones. And displeasures in living with hated ones. Have you had that kind of suffering before? You were in a family that all these family members are not friendly to each other. The wife hates the husband hates the wife, the children are unhappy, and they finally get a divorce, and fighting, crying, emotions. So, displeasures, discomfort, unhappiness, living with hated ones, or working with hated ones. Have you ever had experiences of working with colleagues that you hate? You don't like the politics. You hate everybody. Everybody hates you. Do you have that experiences too? There's an agony working in an organization that you don't like the politics. So that's suffering too. And suffering from your misunderstanding of the five skantras, misunderstanding of the world, misunderstanding of your relationship with the world, misunderstanding of how, when, why you live this life, and your misunderstanding in personalization of everything, selfishness, egoistic behavior. All these are suffering. Who gave you this suffering? God gave you this suffering? No. You give rise to this suffering yourself. What are these? Suffering arises because of our craving. You're greedy, you crave, you attach. And it is craving which leads to renewed existence, reincarnation. You're craving, that's why you go through this samsara of birth and rebirth and birth and rebirth, because when you crave, when you speak, when you think, when you act, all induces karmic energy, and this karmic energy would carry you going into life and death all the time, life and death all the time. So what are this craving? Craving what? What are this craving? Craving for sensual pleasures? We always crave for sensual pleasures. I want my eyes to like things. That's why I get into YouTube, and I like to see things that stimulate my pleasure, my senses. You know what? What is on the mass media that stimulate your senses? What are those? I should say it. I should say, what are those harmful stimuli that would stimulate our senses? Sex and violence wrongly drive you to induce your sensual pleasures. Lust and greed. These are mental impurities. But you're always looking for these impurities. Maybe hidden under your mind, you know these are impure, but you can't help it. You always want to click on because you're attached to it, you cling to it. You can help yourself. Lust and greed have been so dominating since life after life that you have to click on for the continuation of satisfaction, of the lust and greed. And you know what happened when you continue with the lust and greed? You cultivate seeds in your alive consciousness, just like you key in your keyboard, in your memory. Everything you see, it's not just you seeing it, it registers in your brain, in the memory. If there's so much killing that you see and register in your memory, you know what will come up? Your behavior will have a tendency of killing, of hurting, of being harmful. There was something happened in the country that a guy who always wanted to see violence in the mass media, he went crazy. He killed 6 or 7, passengers in the subway, and hurt about 12 or 13, because he was so involved with violence that he wanted to kill. He wanted to hurt. In other words, craving for sensual pleasures, lust and greed, and these are mental impurities, but we always look for them. We're attached to them. Craving for non-existence of these pleasures. You always have aversions to things you don't like. You hate people. You hate things you don't like. And that is, you are seeking for the non-existence of displeasure. This is displeasure. I don't want it to exist. I hate it. I'm aversive to it. So it's craving for non-existence of displeasures. You are craving for existence of pleasures. You are craving for non-existence of displeasures, which is just the opposite. Craving for continued existence. You don't think that everything is changing and impermanent. You always want to hang on things. This is mine. I want to hang on to it. The concept of impermanence is not in your mind. You always want to possess. I want to possess this. You take it away, I'm going to fight to retain it. Craving for possessions, you always personalize things. Personalization of subjective experiences. This is mine. A self-centered approach to everything. Self, ego. And all these are craving. I'm giving you just a summary of it. So, what are we doing in here? We're talking about introspection. We're talking about thinking. What do we always do? We always think in the wrong way. We always perform in the wrong way. We always act in the wrong way. We always talk in the wrong way. We slander, we lie, foul languages. We're involved with killing, fishing, hunting. Every day, everybody is eating meat. You are interacting, supporting human beings to kill other beings for food. Is it right to take away the life of other beings just to satisfy your taste? You kill a cow for the steak, for the beef, and then you cook with it and you put seasoning onto it and you eat it. You taste the flesh and blood of an animal. But you know that that animal being slaughtered is really suffering from cruelty and suffering from pain too. Try to be a vegetarian. Don't involve in any killing. And you know how to kill the seal for the fur? Very cruel. Some of these animals were being skinned alive in order to supply you with the outfit that you are wearing in your parties, fur coat and all that. And one more. So we need to have the right introspection leading to nirvana. And I have a lot more to say about introspection, but I don't want to rush through it. But we know that we are thinking in the wrong way in most cases. And the Buddha wanted us to think in the right way. So the Buddha, in his teaching, brought forward a lot of concepts for us to think about, for us to ponder, for us to get wisdom from. So in introspection, you must know a few important concepts so that you know how to introspect. So you must know what is impermanence. You must know what is loving kindness. You must know what is karma. You must know what are the 4 foundations of introspection. You must know what the 4 seals of the Dharma. So there are so many concepts as expounded by the Buddha that we need to know in order to introspect. Because we always bring egoistic concepts in our introspection, which is not right. So in this session, in this particular topic of introspection, we can't just skip through it. We have to give you some very basic, important concepts so that you know that whenever you are thinking, all these concepts provide you parameters for your thinking. If you don't have any parameters, any standard in your thinking will go astray. Your thinking will be just lust, greediness, skeptical doubt, cognitive dissonance, emotions, self-centered, personalization. So, in the next 2 or 3 sessions, we're going to explore some very important concepts, universal concepts, so that whenever we think, we know what is right and what is wrong. The Noble Eightfold Path, supernormal Noble Eightfold Path, or the righteous paths. So we need to know these concepts in order to introspect within the parameters of these concepts, within the compass of it. When you steer a boat, you need a compass to know which direction you go to. If you don't even know the direction, how do you introspect? If you don't even know the direction at night, for example, at night, then you're going to run into many obstructions. All right, so today I just talk about wrong thinking. I haven't talked about the right introspection yet, but we need to know we have lust, we have craving, we have greediness that leads us to suffering, and we want to get away from all these. To have the right introspection, the cultivation of introspection. And now we have learned the concentration part. I don't know if you have, but I spent 20 hours on concentration. Always go back to your notes. You have to review what should you do in concentration. I've gone through details in concentration. Now we slowly would get into introspection so that you know what is wrong and what is right. Not just concentration. Concentration is not involved with wisdom. It's just involved with your focus. But now you want to elevate your concentration to a higher level, to that of prajna, wisdom, bodhi, anuttara samya sambuddhi. You're going further and further and further, upper and upper. Meditation is a long way, but your path must be right. Your foot must be straight on the right path, not on the wrong path.